The paleontologist was horrified to discover that the rock behind her had a pair of large eyes and could even blink. Just when the woman thought this might be some kind of artifact, the stone actually came to life. During an archaeological expedition on the Atlantic coast of northwestern Norway, a privately sponsored team is conducting excavation operations on a beach. The team's mission is to find the ruins of a church from over 2,000 years ago. Legend has it that back then, the Norwegian king Olaf hunted down a troll in this area. To commemorate this feat, Olaf built a church here to suppress the troll. Although the legend is a bit outrageous, the archaeological team is not looking for the remains of a troll, but the site of that church. However, the team has been digging in this area for 6 months, but has never found the location of the ruins. Because of the lack of progress, the sponsor has also lost patience. Facing the threat of capital withdrawal, Dr. Sigurd, the head of the archaeological team, also panicked a bit. He found Nora, who was working on the excavation. It turned out that the location of this excavation was provided to the archaeological team by Nora. If they still couldn't dig anything up, not only would the 6 months be wasted, but he also wouldn't be able to explain it to the investors. Facing Dr. Sigurd's questioning, Nora was also a little worried. It turned out that she found this location from her father's notes. She only knew that the church was probably in this area, but did not know the specific location. Just when they were struggling with whether to continue digging, Nora suddenly dug something up.
Hey.
You're shitting me, right?
Get your ass down here, Sigurd.
We got something! Nora, we got something, right?
Yes.
Dr. Sigurd thought they had found the ruins of the church. However, when everyone cleared the nearby mud, they found that what Nora dug up was not a ruin, but the remains of some large animal. Meanwhile, at a construction site in the Dovre Mountains of Norway, a railway company is working in the mountains, preparing to build a tunnel through the mountain range. However, the railway company's actions aroused the dissatisfaction of local environmental protection organizations, and some protesters also came to the construction site. Looking at the protesters holding signs, the person in charge of the railway company not only did not stop work, but also prepared to conduct a blast in front of the protesters. Everything was ready, and the person in charge activated the detonation device. With a loud bang, a shockwave surged out of the tunnel, drowning out the voices of the protesters. After the blast, several workers drove to the blast point. However, just as the workers were checking whether the blast was successful, strange roars suddenly came from the cave. The tunnel collapse was quickly detected by the equipment of the Norwegian Geological Survey. However, the Geological Survey did not send a rescue team, but reported the situation to the military. Upon receiving the news, the military immediately sent 2 fighter jets to the incident area. The scene was transmitted back to the military conference room through the cameras of the fighter jets. Looking at the collapsed mountain range, the Prime Minister of Norway thought that the railway company had caused an accident during the blasting construction. However, the military consultant told the Prime Minister that this was no ordinary collapse. Looking at the giant footprints on the screen, the Prime Minister revealed a puzzled expression. Her assistant, Andreas, suspected that this might be a local subsidence caused by the collapse. But why would a collapse form such huge footprints? In order to figure out the origin of these footprints, the Prime Minister requested the establishment of an investigation team. By the seaside, Nora and the archaeological team members were celebrating the discovery of the remains. They had received a clear answer from the investor that the funding would continue until the end of the excavation. However, just when the team members were happy, a military helicopter suddenly flew over not far away. A soldier hurried down from the plane and called for Nora by name. The confused Nora wanted to ask what was going on, but the soldier told her it was a state secret. Before Nora could figure out what was happening, she was forcibly taken onto the plane and sent to a nearby military base. The person responsible for receiving Nora was Andreas. From Andreas, Nora learned about the tunnel collapse. At first, Nora thought the construction site had discovered some ruins, which was why the Prime Minister invited her over. However, when she came to the conference room, she found that there were actually some geologists and biologists on the scene. The military put photos of the accident from a few days ago on the big screen, wanting the experts to help see what was going on with the footprints appearing in the mountains. Seeing the photos, a geologist speculated that this might be caused by local subsidence. In karst landforms, such collapses are very common and may be related to underground caves or natural gas. As for why they looked like footprints, the experts speculated that this might just be a coincidence. However, just as the experts were discussing how these footprints were formed, Nora interrupted everyone's speech.
Okej. Alla kan väl säga att det är fotspår, sant? Ja, alltså... Fotavtryck?
Är det en speciell skapning paleontologen har i tankarna?
However, hearing Nora's words, everyone else showed expressions of ridicule. Although they knew these things looked like footprints, other experts did not believe that there would be such huge animals in this world, so everyone avoided the topic of footprints. Although she knew her analysis was a bit presumptuous, Nora stuck to her opinion. Just as the experts were about to continue discussing how the footprints were formed, Sigrid came to the conference room with a video. This video was filmed by a protester during the tunnel collapse. In the video, the protesters heard a strange roar, and then the collapse occurred. Looking at the scene, Nora sensed something was wrong. She asked Sigrid to rewind the video. By listening carefully, she felt that the roar at the beginning of the video must be the sound of some animal. But what animal could make such a sound? Just as Nora was thinking, she suddenly saw a weird figure in the video. Looking at the giant creature on the screen, everyone present was stunned. However, even though they clearly saw a giant creature on the screen, other experts still did not believe it was a troll, thinking it might be caused by the angle or flying dust. Just when everyone was arguing endlessly about the existence in the screen, an accident happened again. In a cabin under the snow-capped mountains, Lars, who had just gotten up, was preparing to enjoy breakfast with his wife. Listening to the news of the collapse on the radio, Lars was still a little worried. It turned out that the collapsed area was only a few kilometers away from them. Lars thought the construction team had used too much explosive. He was worried that the collapse would trigger secondary disasters and implicate nearby areas. This old house was the result of his life's work. Lars planned to go up the mountain to check after breakfast. If there were cracks, he must report them immediately. However, just as Lars picked up the bread, the ground suddenly shook. He thought it was an earthquake and hurriedly hid in the basement with his wife. Just as the old couple hid well, a loud noise came from above, and then the whole ground shook. After a long time, the surroundings returned to calm, and the shaken Lars opened the trapdoor on the floor. However, when he came out to look, he was stunned by the scene before him. Looking at the old house turned into ruins, both Lars and Adrian were stunned. The appearance of the giant creature was quickly reported to the Ministry of Defense. Confirming that the footprints in the mountains were actually made by some kind of creature left the experts in utter disbelief. According to the Earth's environment, the current Earth simply cannot support the survival of giant creatures. How could there be such an existence? In order to figure out what this giant creature was, the Prime Minister decided to hire Nora as a consultant to specialize in investigating the origin of the giant creature. Escorted by a helicopter, Nora arrived at Lars's home. Christopher was leading a team to conduct rescue operations. From Christopher, Nora learned that the giant creature had walked from the northwest direction of the snow-capped mountains 30 minutes ago. The giant creature passed through this area into the distant mountains and finally disappeared. Nora found Lars and wanted to ask if they had seen the appearance of the troll. But at that time, Lars was hiding in the basement and did not see the troll. However, from Audrun, Nora learned another clue. The troll seemed to be humming something when passing by.
Han brukar hörapparat.
Uling som vind.
Nej, det var mer som en melodi. En sørgelig melodi. Det gjorde mig fryktelig trist.
Hearing Audrun's words, Nora thought of something. She came near the footprints to check carefully. The footprints of the troll were enormous, actually more than 10 meters long. Based on the size of the footprints, Nora speculated that the troll's size was at least around 40 to 50 meters. Such a huge existence would be conspicuous anywhere. How did the troll hide? To track the troll, Nora and others came to a depression in the northwest direction based on the footprints. The troll's footprints disappeared in this area. The military thought the troll was hiding nearby and even brought in life detectors and thermal imaging. But Christopher scanned every place in this area and found no trace of the troll. Looking at the surrounding terrain, Nora felt that the troll must be in this area. Only they couldn't find it. She took Andreas to find her father Tobias, who lived alone. To Andreas' surprise, Nora's father was also a paleontologist, but what he studied was not dinosaurs, but trolls.
Vinteren 1943. Nazistene bruker russiske krigsfanger til å bygge Nordlandsbanen, men kommer jo ikke lenger enn til Bodø. Enkelte mener at bygningsarbeidet ble stoppet på grunn av noe de fant inne i fjellet.
Hva fant de da?
Noe kom ut av fjellet.
Akkurat. Det er vanskelig å bevise, selvsagt, så derfor dysset de det ned. Kvittet seg med alle spor og alle
Nei, pappa. I dag.
It turns out that there has always been a legend circulating locally in Norway that a type of giant troll lives on the snowy plains of Norway. Their hearts are made of earth and stone, and their exteriors are covered with heavy snow. And the bodies of these trolls are all hard rocks. As long as they move slightly, the whole ground will shake with it. Originally, trolls and humans had always lived in harmony. But as Christianity swept through Europe, the situation changed drastically. In Christian doctrine, trolls are the embodiment of evil, apostles from hell. To exterminate the trolls, the young and aggressive Norwegian king Olaf launched a war against the troll race. They set traps to besiege the trolls and then cruelly killed them with sunlight. In order to continue the race, some trolls were forced to move into the deep mountains to hide. However, even though the trolls had been hiding in the deep mountains, they still failed to escape Olaf's hunt. Soldiers entered the deep mountains and slaughtered the remaining trolls one by one. In the end, all trolls were killed and completely extinct. By accident, Tobias discovered in the research materials of the German Nazis that the Germans had actually found trolls in Norway. In order to study these giant creatures, he started a decades-long marathon. Nora also became a paleontologist under her father's influence. But Tobias researched for many years and never found the existence of trolls. He was even treated as a madman and sent to a mental hospital. Learning that Nora had found traces of a troll, Tobias was very excited. He immediately took a map and rushed to the mountainous area where the troll disappeared with Nora. As soon as he got off the plane, Tobias took the map and compared it everywhere. It turns out that these trolls camouflage themselves as mountain peaks or boulders. As long as you compare based on the map, you can find the troll. Just with one glance, he found that the nearby terrain was wrong. He could be sure that the troll was hiding nearby. But they searched for a long time without finding any trace of the troll. Just then, Nora smelled the scent of rotting leaves.
Pappa?
Looking at the troll beside them, both Nora and Tobias were stunned. It turned out the troll was hiding right next to them. Fortunately, Christopher didn't turn off the helicopter engine. Seeing the troll appear, everyone hurriedly returned to the helicopter. Just as the helicopter took off, the troll stood up completely. Just as Nora speculated, this troll was dozens of meters tall. The scene of the team discovering the troll was also transmitted back to the military headquarters via camera. Seeing that the troll Nora mentioned really existed, the geological expert who was certain just now was dumbfounded. Considering the danger of the troll, the Prime Minister immediately dispatched the army and armored vehicles. Learning that the military was going to attack the troll, Tobias felt it was a bit dangerous. The group hurriedly rushed to the forest, wanting to stop the military's action. However, when they arrived, the military had already discovered the troll's tracks. With a command from the leading officer, countless shells flew towards the troll. But just when the military thought the shells could kill the troll, a weird scene happened. The troll, bombarded in turns, was completely fine, not even suffering a flesh wound. It turns out that the troll's body is made of hard rock, and human shells can't blast it open at all. However, this was not the worst part. The human attack angered the troll. It charged at the tanks, and the attacking squad was wiped out instantly. The troll also grabbed a soldier and treated him as a snack. Looking at the terrifying troll, everyone present was scared silly. Nora wanted to retreat with her father, but unexpectedly, Tobias ran up to the troll. He shouted loudly, trying to communicate with the giant troll. Nora just wanted to stop him, but found that the troll actually stopped in place. But just when Nora thought her father could communicate with the troll, a soldier wanted to take the opportunity to sneak attack. As a result, a tragedy occurred. After killing the sneaker, the troll did not continue to destroy. It turned and walked into the forest, disappearing into the night. When Nora found her father in the forest, he was dying. Just before dying, Tobias mumbled a sentence.
Slottet. Kongen. Hjem. Jenta mi. Tro.
Before Nora could speak, Tobias breathed his last. Her father's death left Nora deeply remorseful. If she had held her father back then, maybe the tragedy would not have happened. Back at the base, Nora opened her father's research diary, which was full of his research on trolls over the years. Just on an illustration, Nora accidentally discovered the troll's weakness. Trolls seem to be very afraid of church bells. Once a church rings a bell, they will throw stones at the church. Are trolls afraid of the sound of bells? She immediately found the Prime Minister and proposed to try using bells. However, the military felt this was too ridiculous. To prove her speculation, Nora took out some ancient books. Some books recorded similar legends. Although she didn't know if Nora's speculation was useful, the Prime Minister decided to try it. However, the Prime Minister made two preparations. If the bell plan failed, she was ready to use missiles to deal with the troll. The Prime Minister asked the military to prepare fighter jets to attack the troll at any time. Meanwhile, in a forest park in the mountains, children were playing happily in the park's playground. However, just then, the ground suddenly shook.
Victor?
Looking at the suddenly appearing troll, the children let out terrified screams. The staff also evacuated everyone immediately. Fortunately, the troll did not enter the amusement park, but just watched the humans on the ground from the side. At that moment, Nora also arrived at the scene with the bell. Christopher had the helicopter spread out and fly around the troll. The moment it heard the bells, the troll covered its ears in pain. Seeing that the bells were really useful, Christopher wanted to get closer, but unexpectedly the troll suddenly grabbed a stone on the ground and smashed a helicopter. The out-of-control helicopter crashed into the forest and exploded. However, before everyone could react, the troll reached out its big hand again. Seeing the troll reach out to catch the falling helicopter, everyone present was stunned. The troll crushed the helicopter and made a warning expression. Then, before everyone could react, the troll turned and walked into the forest. Nora understood that this was the troll's warning. The incident of the amusement park being attacked by the troll quickly made headlines through the media. Facing the accusations of the public, the Prime Minister felt great pressure. Because Nora's plan failed, she also became the target of everyone's blame. The Prime Minister decided to take extreme measures against the troll and use missiles to eliminate this troll. However, Nora felt this wouldn't work. Just now she saw the troll save a child, indicating that the other party did not want to oppose humans. As long as they didn't provoke the troll, there would be no conflict between the two sides. Nora's proposal did not gain the Prime Minister's approval. The Prime Minister dared not gamble with the public's safety for tomorrow. And Nora was also fired by the Prime Minister, losing all her duties. Even Andreas was implicated and forced to resign. They could only leave the office in disappointment. Meanwhile, the military discovered through surveillance that the troll was moving toward the capital. Considering the harm of the troll, the Prime Minister held a press conference. She announced the proposal to use missiles to the whole country.
Norge har vært rustet til å håndtere store krisesituasjoner. Men ingenting kunne forberede oss på det vi nå står overfor. En skapning som vitenskapen har vært uviten om, har reist seg fra dypet. Historien vil måtte omskrives. Men først må vi sikre vår befolkning, vårt land. Regjeringen, Forsvaret og våre fremste forskere har siden de første rapportene fra Dovrefjell i går morges gjort vårt ytterste for å få kontroll over situasjonen.
Hearing the Prime Minister's notice, Andreas felt that the military's missiles might also be unable to kill the troll. However, just as he was complaining, Nora, who was looking through the diary, inadvertently saw a record in her father's diary. There is a gatekeeper guarding the troll. Nora felt the name Sinding rang a bell, but she couldn't quite place it. She asked Andreas casually, who unexpectedly told her that this so-called Sinding was the Chief Justice of the Royal Court in Oslo. Hearing Andreas talk about the royal family, Nora suddenly remembered her father's last words when he died. Did her father want to tell her that the royal family knew something? Nora decided to go to the royal palace to have a look, but they were stopped by guards as soon as they arrived at the door. Andreas just wanted to speak, but saw Sinding appear at the door. Nora learned from Sinding that he not only knew her father, but also had interactions with him, specifically regarding the existence of trolls. Led by Sinding, Nora came to the underground garage of the royal family. In the deepest part, he opened a huge steel door. Inside the steel door appeared a long and narrow tunnel. However, when Sinding turned on the lighting equipment in the tunnel, Nora was stunned by the scene before her.
Dette var trollkongens hjem. Under kristningen av Norge renset Olav den hellige landet for alt som ikke passet med den nye troen. Han visste at ingenting, heller ikke for troll, var mer sårbart enn familie.
Hva har skjedd med dem?
Det kan bare kalles en massaker. Men de sparte et av trollkongens barn, og det brukte de for å lokke ham tilbake til mørket. Lure ham inn i dypet av Dovrefjell, og stenge ham inne for å dø.
It turns out that the royal family knew about the existence of trolls decades ago, but at that time, The royal family did not announce it, but secretly blocked the news. But unexpectedly, 12 years ago, Tobias learned about the existence of this cave from somewhere, and actually sneaked in. To prevent the news from leaking, the royal family sent Tobias to a mental hospital. When learning that the troll was rushing towards the city, Sinding guessed that the troll's purpose might be this area. He speculated that Nora and others would definitely come to find him, so he waited at the door in advance. Looking at the remains on the ground, Nora realized that the legend of Olaf fighting the trolls was actually true. But back then, Olaf only had bows, arrows, and spears. How did they kill so many trolls? Filled with doubt, Nora switched on her flashlight, intending to examine it closely. But the moment the flashlight beam hit the remains, a weird scene happened again.
Andreas, se. Fra mørket kom de.
Seeing that the remains were actually corroded, Nora remembered that her father's diary had recorded that trolls only appear when there is no sun. It turns out that trolls are afraid of ultraviolet rays. Nora, who figured everything out, contacted Christopher immediately. She told him that the troll was afraid of ultraviolet rays. And here the troll also arrived outside the city. The military fired shells wanting to lure the troll away, but the troll ignored humans at all and went straight to the palace. To avoid greater destruction, the Prime Minister immediately decided to launch missiles outside the city. Getting the Prime Minister's authorization, the Minister of Defense entered the key. At the same time as receiving the order, military fighter jets also flew into midair. The pilot aimed at the troll, ready to launch missiles. However, the moment the pilot pressed the launch button, the system malfunctioned. It turned out that after learning Nora found a way to deal with the troll, Sigrid hacked into the launch system and terminated the launch order. And just as the Minister of Defense was checking the system, Nora and Andreas also drove a pickup truck into the city. They placed a troll skull on the pickup truck. Seeing the troll appear, Nora started the truck. Just as Nora speculated, the troll, seeing the skull, was indeed attracted. It chased Nora's truck all the way. Nora originally intended to lure the troll out of the city, but at the last intersection away from the city, the rope tying the skull broke, and the skull fell onto the road. Looking at the remains on the ground, the troll let out a painful roar. However, when looking back, the troll saw its own reflection in the glass of a building. It thought it was a companion and happily wanted to say hello. Just then, the troll let out a roar as it recalled the slaughter of its clan by humans back then. The angry troll looked at Nora, wanting to avenge its clansmen. Finding the troll running towards her, Nora sensed something bad. She gripped the steering wheel and hurriedly started the truck. Fortunately, her reaction was fast, so she wasn't caught by the troll. Crossing the bridge, Nora drove out of the city. Meanwhile, Christopher also prepared the lighting equipment. Seeing the troll appear, he activated the surrounding UV lights. Seeing the troll trapped, Christopher thought they had succeeded. And the military fighter jets also arrived outside the city. The pilot prepared to launch missiles again. But discovering human activity around, the pilot had to interrupt the launch. However, just when Christopher was preparing to kill the troll with ultraviolet rays, Nora suddenly cut off the power. It turned out that the reason the troll came to the city was not to cause destruction. It just wanted to go to the cave to see the remains of its kind. Nora ran to the troll, wanting to communicate with it.
Vi skal ikke jage deg, bare gå!
Hearing Nora's shouting, the troll also calmed down. But before the troll could turn around, a blinding light appeared on the distant horizon. It turned out that dawn had broken. The moment the sun hit it, the troll let out a painful roar again. Looking at the lifeless troll, Nora blamed herself very much. Just then, the Prime Minister also arrived at the scene. She expressed her apology to Nora. Although the troll was killed, Nora wasn't happy at all. The troll never thought of hurting humans. Instead, humans targeted them everywhere. Nora remembered the fairy tale her father told her when she was a child. It was only at this moment that she realized Olaf's slaughter of the trolls had never been mere killing. He was simply using their existence to strengthen his own royal authority. But the death of this troll did not bring the story to a close. In the previously collapsed tunnel, a pile of rubble suddenly shook. Are there other trolls hiding deep in the mountains of Norway? We'll see you in the next episode.